We've demonstrated many times here in the Garden of Eden uses for bamboo, and I've said many times how bamboo is without a doubt one of the most useful plants and materials on the entire earth. What we're doing this year is we're actually building a bamboo trellis system around the entire garden, and it's going to serve a few purposes. One, it's going to actually be a fence for the entire garden. And two, it's going to grow food vertically around the entire garden, which gets us more utilization of our space, of our acreage, by growing vertically. So it'll sort of be like how grapevines are grown. They've got those rows of grapevines that are about 6-7 feet tall. And it's going to be extremely beautiful. All this bamboo is free harvested. And ideally, the bamboo is best around 3 years of age. Once it gets older than that, it starts to get a little on the brittle side. Once it's younger than that, it's a little on the soft side, meaning it's not as hard. So each bamboo has its differences, but generally speaking, around 3 years old is the ideal age for a bamboo shaft. Now, we've built some trellises over here that are really nice, that work really well. And this trellis here got built without my supervision as a first-timer experiment, and it's really not built so well. You can see it's pretty floppy, it's pretty shaky, and it's really not going to last and it's not going to last, and it's not even going to perform the function that we need it to perform, which is to hold the weight of the plants. So what we're doing here is a very simple concept, and that is we're taking a piece of bamboo, ideally one that's on the thicker and stronger side, such as this piece here. I would say this is about a good inch, not quite an inch diameter and thickness. It's a solid piece, and this is really good for a vertical post. Anything much smaller isn't going to really be able to serve the purposes of a vertical post. Then you have to decide how long you want that post to be. And so we're going for around a 5-foot tall fence. And I want to be able to pound this post at least a foot into the ground, probably about 2 feet. So I'm going to need about a 7-foot post. So I'm going to cut it right around here. Now, when you're pounding these posts, you want to pound the skinnier end into the ground because it's easier to pound a skinnier end into the ground than it is the fat end to the ground. Now, this is just a hacksaw, and unless you buy a Japanese bamboo saw, this is about as good as you're going to get for cutting bamboo. You need to use small teeth or really sharp teeth when cutting bamboo because it's extremely fibrous. It's got really long, tough grains, almost like wires. So I'm just going to start this cut at an angle. So this wall is pretty weak and flimsy. It's got, relatively thin horizontal connectors, which is fine. We want to use the thinner ones for the horizontal connectors, but it's sagging in the middle because there's not enough vertical support. So I'm probably going to add 2 to this one because it's pretty weak. So I just want to line this right up here. So this bamboo is pounded in plenty far. The further in, of course, the stronger it's going to be. To a certain point, it still has potential to break off at the ground. Depending on how hard your soil is, if you've got a clay soil and it's dry, you won't be able to pound this through. And you want to make sure that you use a metal hammer. Would probably crack this bamboo and it wouldn't work, so you need to put like a piece of wood on top and then hit it with a metal hammer, or you need some sort of a wood or rubber mallet. Hi. And then you need some sort of a tie. And again, to me, if it's not a sustainable material, it's not worth using. So we don't buy anything. And now this in and of itself isn't a sustainable material, meaning it's made from petroleum. But it is a sustainable material because I harvested it from the trash. And all this is is this shrink wrapping, this industrial shrink wrapping that is used on pallets. And there is millions and millions and millions of yards of this thrown away every day in warehouses all across the entire country. And this stuff is perfect for ties. The reason why is because it's pretty strong, and also because it's got stretch, and also because it's pretty sticky and pretty grippy. So it's really easy to tie knots, and the knots stay really well. You can also weave this into strips, and I've even found ways too where if you twist it up and then you pull it, it actually becomes stronger because it has a stretch to it. But once it gets to a certain stretch point, when it's twisted, it doesn't stretch anymore and it becomes stronger. So if you twist it, and then you pull it, it turns into a really strong piece of rope. You can also take pieces like this and then weave them together for an even stronger rope. For this purpose, it doesn't need to be that strong. So all I'm gonna do is take this tie. Ready? Woo! And then I'm just gonna tie this vertical post to the horizontal post. And I want it to be as tight as possible. And then I just want to repeat this process and tie each one of these horizontals to this vertical. And then I'm just going to do another post. And depending on how high you go, depending on how much weight there's going to be, would dictate how many of these vertical posts you want to have, and also how thick your horizontal posts are going to need to be. So for this particular wall, I feel like, you know, every 6 feet or so is probably good enough, unless you're using real weak and flimsy horizontal posts. You know, when you're working with natural materials, when you're working with organic materials, salvaged materials, it's really hard to develop a system or a formula for an exact process because there's so many variables. And so I'm not going to say, you know, you use one every 2 feet or every 3 feet or blah, 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 because there's all sorts of factors. It's very simple. All you just want is for the, you know, for the wall to be stable and vertical using these bamboos. And then what we're going to do is we're going to trellis our blackberry bushes, our pumpkins, our watermelons, our cucumbers up these and grow them vertical. So it's going to be beautiful, and it's also going to save space.